Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mac Story.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for stopping by the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. Today, I'm interrupting my series on my book, Blue Collar Kaizen, Leading Lean and Lean Teams, to bring you a special guest. I want to introduce you to Bobby Kerns. He's an operations manager. I think they call him the chief of operations in Fairfax County, Virginia. In the Public Works Department, he actually leads the Maintenance and Stormwater Division. I met Bobby about 4 years ago. I got to speak to a bunch of people in the Public Works Department, different divisions, and Bobby was one of those divisions. His division was one of those, and I got to speak to him and some of his team members for about 30 minutes. And then Bobby took his team and launched like a rocket. Started doing the book studies you guys hear me talk about. He's been doing them for 4 years. Then he invited us up recently to do a 3-day workshop, leadership development workshop, with about 20 of his top leaders in his division. So brought him to you today. Let him tell you his story and what he's done and what they're doing. He's doing all the stuff I talk about, and he's getting the results that I always tell you will get. So I'm excited to introduce you to Bobby. So I hope you enjoy today's episode. I'm excited to introduce you to a friend of mine, a high impact leader that I've met. Got to know him about 3-4 years ago, back I think in 2017, but I got to know him a lot better since then. And his name is Bobby Kerns. He works with the Fairfax County, Virginia Public Works Department. I'm gonna let him tell you about all that. He can tell you more about what he does and where he works and all that than I can. But welcome to the show, Bobby.
Glad to be here. Thank you, Mac, for having me.
All right, man. I mean, I'm excited about it. So, I know you work in the Public Works right now. You're in the Maintenance and Stormwater. You actually lead that entire division, I think you guys call it. But tell me about your story. Like, where they call you the chief now, I guess, over the Maintenance and Stormwater, but you didn't start out as a chief.
No, Mac, I started out as a maintenance worker. Go back to 1988. I graduated high school, and college probably wasn't an option for me at that time, but work was.
I like that.
Yeah, I actually started working when I was young, around 11 or 12, with my father, which definitely different times than we are in today. But I came to Fairfax County in 1988 as a maintenance worker.
Wow. So that's, what'd you say, 33 years you told me when I met you before, I think. How long you been there?
Yeah, 30. This is my 33rd year.
Okay. Started as a maintenance worker.
Started as a maintenance worker.
Okay.
And back in those days, it was do as I say, not as I do kind of leadership around here. But yeah, there was some hard workers back in those days, but actually, you learned a lot when it comes to the trade and learned a lot what not to do as well. But over the years, I worked myself up, different positions. And about 7 years ago, I think it's been, I landed in this position that I'm currently holding, which is the chief of operations.
Okay.
Maintenance and Stormwater Management Division. Yes.
Okay, that's pretty neat. So tell the listeners, for people who don't really understand about public works, inside of a county government or whatever, or even maintenance and stormwater specifically, but I guess more about specifically maintenance and stormwater, what you guys do. What kind of jobs are they? I mean, what all do you do? It's maintenance and stormwater is 2 words, but you guys do a lot, I know, from when I talk to you guys up there.
Yeah, I mean, Public Works does a lot of different things, and we're in our Public Works here in Fairfax. We are broke down, and I think it's 5 different divisions. You have solid waste, you have wastewater, you have capital facilities that does the big projects, then you have stormwater, and then you have the IT department. But we specifically we manage the stormwater in Fairfax County through ponds and conveyance systems, pipes and catch basins and so on. In my actually branch that I manage, we actually go out and put boots on the ground. We clean out the ponds, we clean out the pipes, we repair the pipes. We also do some other stuff like, repair concrete walkways, asphalt walkways, and obviously we respond to the snow emergencies flood emergencies and things like that. So we a catch-all division. You know,
Okay.
everybody else doesn't want to do, we do it.
Okay. Because I heard you guys talking about, and you mentioned it. I mean, you guys do asphalt, concrete. I remember when I was there, somebody was talking about carpentry, some type of
Yeah,
carpentry y'all do.
yeah,
I guess you do electrical stuff, and I mean,
yeah,
pretty much any kind of maintenance on anything in the county that needs to be worked on. Is that right or wrong?
yeah. You know, our motto is no job's too big. This may take us a little longer to get it done.
Like, no job's too big. It might just take you a little longer to get it done if it
That's
is
right.
big.
That's right.
That's pretty cool, man. So you told me about where you started, told me where you at, but how did we get to know each other?
Well, Mac, I was given this position I'm currently in, like I said, about almost 7 years ago, and it was the branch chief, basically leading 75 other, blue collar workers, anywhere from a maintenance worker all the way up to one of my senior managers that does a little bit of different everything. Um, and I was part of this. I've been part of this branch, my entire career. So I kind of knew what I was getting into. I actually didn't know how I was going to, respond in this type of position. What I found out real early is, is the trust that we had in the branch. It was limited, and the morale it wasn't as good as I would like to seen it. It was actually low morale.
Mm.
One big thing that concerned me was, how people was being treated and opportunities people was getting. I remember being on a lot of interview panels and interviewing some of our staff, in-house staff, and asking questions that have maybe, we might have used an acronym, and are finding out in this interview process that our staff didn't understand what that acronym meant, or they couldn't answer some of the questions that we were asking that pertained to their job. So it made me start digging a little deeper to figure out, well, man, how can we help how can we help our own people? Why are we always trying to go outside and hire people outside and jobs that we have employees inside that should be able to have the knowledge of and skills to do? So that was a start of opening my eyes up to see, okay, we got to do something. We got to educate our staff. We need to we need to give them opportunity to enhance their skills and knowledge of what we do. So that was the start of it. Well, in order to do that, I think we were reading your books. You got to know what you don't know, and so we had to get introduced to some things that we wasn't doing. There was no leadership readings of any type back then, even including me. But we do have a part of our department that has a development and leadership position that's all they do. So I reached out to that person at that time and told her I wanted to meet with her. So I met with her. Her name was Lori. And Lori and I sat down and talked, and I told her what my concerns was and what I was looking to do. And so she decided to start doing some listening sessions with our staff, starting with my supervisors, as well as we got the director of the agency to do some listening sessions with all of my staff. And between the two of them, it generated a couple pages of issues of concerns that our staff, really felt strong about. So that was the easy part of it. Okay, now you're giving me an instruction book. This is all I need to do. This is no problem, That's what I was thinking. Like it was such little things as like buying a vacuum for them to clean out their trucks.
Oh yeah.
I had that put in the next day, I had it, I think maybe the next week at the most, but those are a lot of little things. But obviously, as I was discussing earlier, trust, advancement opportunities, all those things happen to be on the list as well. So those things wasn't easy to fix. So I had to fix, had to fix a lot of we had to work on a lot of other areas to fix those things. So one day after all these listening sessions and talking multiple meetings with Lori, and she stopped by one day, decided blue, and said, "Hey, Bobby, I put a book on your desk. I want you to read it and tell me what you think about it." And to be honest with you, at first I was like, man, I don't read books.
A lot of us don't in the blue collar world, do we?
I was like, I really don't read books. But anyway, I sat down and it was Leading from the Front Lines book, Blue Collar Leadership.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. The one for the frontline entry level workforce that I wrote. Yep.
Yep. So I'll be honest with you, not because I'm speaking to you, but I got 2 chapters in and I knew, I was like, oh, I got to get this. I need this for our staff. So that was the beginning of what we're doing. So I called Lori up. I said, Lori, I want to know some more information about this. So we decided to move forward with a book club, book study group, and I used my supervisory staff. And I think at that point in time, I might have had like 15 or 16 total people in the room.
Okay.
We've grown a little bit since then, but I could tell you, I started out saying, okay, well, I don't want to push this on the body. So I asked everybody kind of in a way, I said, hey, I would like for you guys to participate, but you don't have to. And we went around the room and everybody said, yeah, I'll participate. Yeah, I'll participate. And we got to the last person and he says, well, I'm going to be honest with you, Bobby. I have no desire to be reading these books or having any part of this. But since the rest of the group is going to do it, I do it too.
I don't want to be left out.
I won't mention his name, but he's actually turned out to be one of my better managers, and
Okay.
he's actually advanced his career a couple times since the beginning of this.
Was one reason because he did participate, even though he participated reluctantly? Did he actually get something out of it once he got going that caused that to happen, or would that have happened anyway?
Yeah, we seen it. It was like the first few weeks we did how we used the work. We actually brought it into our staff meeting, and we read a couple chapters, and we went around the room and had a discussion about how it pertains to us in our daily operations and how can we use it to help us. We had those type of discussions, and first few weeks, we were doing it. You could see he didn't want nothing to do with it. He had a little bit of participation efforts, but eventually, he came around to he's one of our bigger participants now when it comes to it.
That's awesome.
It's not with just him, that we have several people that was in a bad place. And some of the things we're doing to help us get better and how we have got better is because we didn't force anything on anyone, but they seen how others was, digesting it and implement it into their daily, their daily actions.
Yeah.
And they seen it. So I think they wanted to put a little bit of it. So they started getting a little bit of it and they seen how it works for them. So yeah, I mean, it's been 4 years of building, and we started with, like I said, we started with that book, but we've read 4 or 5 books of yours through that same format. Every Friday we go to our staff meeting, and the first thing we do in our staff meeting, up until 2 weeks ago, was read 2 or 3 chapters and discuss it. I'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing now a little bit later, but
Okay.
but I intend to have those readings, if it's blue collar leadership books or Stephen Covey or someone else, we will have them readings at every one of my staff meetings as long as I'm in the chief position. So,
And that's because you got results for 4 years doing that,
we're
not because
definitely,
somebody's telling you
yeah,
to do it.
yeah, and first of all, you got to look in the mirror. As your book talks about, look in the mirror. You got to do a self-evaluation. You got to understand. You got to know what you don't know and accept it. And it took us a little while to get started with that, but it's from then to now. I can tell you, Mac, it's really fun and exciting to watch these guys. You and I've had some conversation. I'm eligible to retire, and I'm actually in what they call the drop program, but one reason's keeping me here is I don't want to leave it right now. I mean, it's exciting to see the growth in some of these guys and how they are, trying to reach their, staff out on the cruise and stuff like that. It's very fun and excited to hear them talk about leadership things that we learn and using the principles on their daily, routine
Yeah.
performance. So.
Yeah. So did you see that coming? I know
Um,
you've been knowing, I haven't been knowing very long because I haven't known you that well, but you've been knowing for a long time your retirement year was coming or whatever. And so you've been kind of looking forward to that. Now you done built you a team that's killing it. And just like, now I don't want to go.
right, exactly. A couple years ago, I didn't have no intentions to work beyond my eligibility date, but I'm here a year and 2 months beyond my eligibility date as of right now. So,
Already.
um, you know, starting off, I wasn't sure how we were going to adapt. The team was going to adapt to this new leadership philosophy we were using, and got off a slow start. But at the same time, as I seen some improvements in a couple people, and it excited me. I seen improvements in myself. I made some adjustments and I made some changes to myself on how I was doing things. And when I started doing that, I started seeing better results. And other people started seeing things, and it's like, oh well, something to this.
Yeah.
And you put all this stuff together, and it starts building like a snowman. You start rolling that thing down the road, and you get bigger and bigger as you go. And that's kind of where it's at now. I mean, be honest with you, the trust that wasn't there. Um, we have, I'm not saying we're perfect, but we're 100% better than we were 6 years ago, and we're certainly better than we were 4 years ago. Um, the morale is higher now here than it has ever been.
Mm,
Um,
that's
you
great.
know, the guys are, you know, if you look back there, you see those books.
I recognize a lot of those books.
But they're coming in here daily, different people. Hey, can I get a book? What book do you recommend? And it's nice to hand these books out because people are seeing what's happening from outside of our ranks.
Oh yeah. You guys
And
increasing your influence beyond your circle.
yes, exactly right. And what's better than that is I got people in other divisions and other departments that's actually, hey, tell me something. Is asking, "Well, tell me something about this blue collar stuff y'all doing down there." And I'm excited to tell them about it when they do ask too.
That's awesome. And you got the evidence to support whatever you're telling them, your team. I mean, all you got to do, if they question something, really, you can say, hey, go talk to this person or go talk to that person.
Exactly.
Let them tell you. They can tell you, what they got out of it, what they felt and what they've seen, not just you as the leader of it, right?
That's right. That's right. And you guys were here a couple months, last month, or
Yep. It's been a
it was
couple
in
months ago or so.
June,
Yeah.
early June. You guys were here, and we did a 3-day workshop with you. And man, one of the things that we could always share is we got each one of the participants to do a little testimony at the end of the workshop.
And that was so powerful, wasn't it? I
Oh
mean,
my God,
did it blow you away? What were you expecting versus what you got?
I wasn't expecting as much as I got from their testimonies. I was expecting maybe the first person would set the stage and the other one would kind of lean off that. But I mean, each one of those testimonies was a little bit different, and each one of them got a little bit different out of it. And it was like it was just great. I mean, it was pretty emotional at times, but at the same time, it was I can go back and listen to them, and I was like, oh yeah, man, this guy's really this was true testimony because I see what he's been doing since that workshop.
Yeah.
But that's a big testimony itself to have those people stand up there and say what that workshop meant to them and how they're going to use it to move forward. So
Yep. And I tell our listeners, if anybody wants to go watch that video, the full length video is actually on my YouTube, both of them. There's a full length video about 30 minutes of the whole, what we call the graduation. And then there's a 6-minute version. And if you want to just get the 6-minute version real easy, you can go to bluecollarleadership.com/speaker info and you can see that. But again, go to my YouTube channel at Mac Story and you can see the whole 30 minutes and you'll see what these guys felt, and I don't want all the credit because we just come up and spent 3 days with you. You invested in them and kind of give them a gift of a 3-day workshop with us, which was phenomenal. You bought like 1,200 books. That's one reason you got all those books back behind you, but you're getting use out of them. But what I tell people, like when we walked into that room, you had the pump primed. And what we're talking about was these 4 years or so of book studies that you've been doing. They were hungry. You got them engaged. I mean, you get the credit for all that. You guys got introduced to the book, and then you didn't just read the book and say, well, yeah, that's be pretty good. You read the book, and you actually did book studies with them before we came up, because we come up once or twice, but we met you for like 30 minutes 3 or 4 years ago. But you had already did book studies before we even met you. That's right? You had already
Yeah,
started those?
yeah, we had started probably about 6 months to a year prior to that. You know, it was a slow start, but we have picked up pace. So to be honest with you, during the pandemic, we've seen some good stuff come out of it over the entire time we've been doing it. But since the pandemic hit, I've seen a big increase in people accepting it, you know, implementing some you know, some of the principles that we discuss in the books and so on. You know, it's obvious now that people believe in it and people support it. And that's the thing about it is yeah, I might lead it, but I could lead it all day long. This is what we want to do. This is what we're going to do. Although, if it's not what they want to do, you're not going to get the results out of it that you really would like to see.
Okay.
So you know, it took us a little bit to start to get going, but at the same time as I'm glad that, you know, it's producing fruit now. But I couldn't do it on my own. It's a team environment. You know, each one of them are doing their part now with it, and I see it getting much bigger than it is now, Mac. I really do here.
That's
in
awesome.
Fairfax.
I mean,
Yeah.
momentum's really spreading, and you guys are the tip of the spear, and you literally are the tip of the spear that really, you know, cause that. And as high impact leaders, we always say it ain't about us, but it starts with us. And that's what I'm saying. I mean, you don't get the
Yeah.
credit. I don't get the credit. Everybody gets the credit because everybody's doing it. Everybody who's
Correct.
doing it
Yes.
gets some credit. People who ain't doing it, they don't get any credit because they ain't doing anything. But you got a lot of folks doing it. So before we move on to the workshop and then your workshop that you conducted afterward, I just wanted I want to ask you for some help, because I talk to a lot of people. Some companies I go in and we go in multiple times, you know, sometimes every quarter or sometimes it's every month. And I mean, it's just different. But most companies, you're not like this. That's why you can actually help me a lot, because you actually did what I want people to do. That's hard to get them to do. But a lot of them, they just won't do the book studies. They think nobody cares, or they don't want to do it just because they're uncomfortable. I'm not really sure why, because they like the content, but they don't. I think they really don't think it'll work because it's so simple. So what advice or encouragement would you have for anybody who's heard me talk about doing book studies? Because that's the number one thing that actually works, and it actually does work, because when you grow together, you grow together. You know, you're growing together as a group, but you're coming together as a group, meaning the trust piece. But what would you say to somebody who just don't want to do a book study because they don't think it'll work? I mean, what would you say to motivate that person?
Well, I would say that um, you're missing out because I feel like from our experience and what we've got out of it, it's actually worked for us. Now, again, I told you earlier, I wasn't a big reader before this. Um, I think one thing that I've learned, and it's actually it's true, and you will experience it. Daily readings of leadership books, if it's blue collar, and blue collar leadership works for us. You know, if it's not blue collar, try something different, but read some leadership, books that work for you. And you have those discussions with your staff or your subordinates or your colleagues or whoever you're having these books. Because when you go in that room, it shouldn't just be, manager down. It should be, hey, everybody's in there equally. And you're
That's a good
reading
point.
and you have these discussions and understand what you just read. That's the biggest thing about me when I used to, try to read, is comprehending what I'm reading. Sometimes I have to go back and read it 2 or 3 times to truly understand it. And these discussions, after you read that chapter or if you read that paragraph, you stop and you have that discussion. And if you have that discussion, there may be a different point from somebody else in that room that can actually truly explain what you just read better to you than what you interpreted yourself.
That's awesome.
But it's a way to, to engage your team. It's a way to give them opportunity to talk about what it gives them an environment they can talk about things where they might not be comfortable, because if you set it up correctly and you say, hey, look, we all in here, we're equal. What
Yeah.
discussions we have in here, if it goes to a private discussion or a discussion related to a personnel issue or something like that, it's confidential and it's got to stay in the room. And once set that platform for them, and they trust that that is a good place to talk, you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot from these discussions and the book readings. The book studies are powerful for us. They worked 100%. So to answer your question, Mac, is I would say I encourage you, if you haven't started and you're thinking about it, start it. Just give it a chance. Don't do it a week and stop. Just give it a chance. You got to do it, and you got to give it some time so you can start seeing what it does for you. I'm convinced it would help any organization get better.
That's awesome. And you said something pretty important. You're equals. You guys, that's you don't feel like you're the school teacher going in holding class. That's not what we're talking about. That's not a book study. That's more like teaching and training. You guys go in and do what I recommend, and what I learned to do myself is y'all read together, y'all talk about it together. Nobody is a teacher. There's no homework, there's no preparation. There's no reason for a leader to be insecure that I don't know this well enough to teach it, because you're not there to teach it. Is that right? That's the way you did it?
That is right. That's correct. And we started out like, if I started reading, I'd read a paragraph or two, and then the person to the right would pick up when I stop. And if you didn't want to read, you just say pass.
Yeah.
We started that way for a while, and we kind of went away from that because there were some people who doesn't read as well as other people.
Yep.
And then when it got to them, they didn't pass, which I thought was great, and they read anyway.
Yep.
And I think it kind of like got some of them a little bit uncomfortable, but I was so glad to see them, read.
Yeah.
But what we do now is I've never had to ask anybody to start reading. I said I would go in there. Sometimes I would start reading, and
Yep.
I just read the whole chapter.
Yeah.
And then when we go to the next chapter, someone else picks up and read.
Okay.
And it's normally it gets around the room for all the people who are comfortable reading out loud.
Okay.
So that format kind of works better for us.
Yep.
But the engagement and the discussions, conversations that we have, it basically comes from everybody in the room.
Yeah.
You never know.
So one or two may read, but everybody discusses.
That's right.
And,
That's
and
right.
even if they were to pass on discussing, everybody listening, everybody hears the discussion, right? Without a doubt, everybody hears the discussion.
And a couple of them had mentioned that. They said, they say it right up to you. It says, listen, I don't talk a lot, but I'm listening.
I listen a lot.
And he says, I'm listening and I'm getting it. And you have to respect that out of people too,
Yep.
Don't always assume that they're just there to be there and they're not listening. You can watch their daily performance, and you can talk to their staff, and you'll see it's working.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Helping.
And that's something, people I speak to all over the country that I always want them to know. Being there is participating. Even if they don't read, even if they don't share, if they're interested enough to be there and listen, that's a huge win. Most people aren't getting introduced to this content in no kind of format.
That's right.
All right, man. So that's good stuff what you're doing. So thank you for sharing that. And we talked about we come up and did the workshop with you guys, man. That was so awesome. We knew when we walked in, there was a lot of energy. The folks were talking, everybody was happy. They liked each other. I mean, that's huge. A lot of times we go to places, they're not talking and they're not laughing, especially when the big dog, the boss walks in, everybody just gets quiet. And, if we didn't know you were the boss, wouldn't nobody be able to tell who the boss was in the room. That's what leadership is. They respect you as a person, not just because you're the boss. They don't just respect your position. They respect you, and you respect them. I mean, it works both ways.
That's right. Yeah. They know I'm one of the team, and sometimes I got to make some tough decisions that they might not always agree with, but at the same time, I'm not going to treat them any different. They have their responsibilities, and I have mine, and we don't push positions around here that I'm the boss, and you're whatever, you got to do what I say. That's the culture change that we're in the middle of right now. Is that, like I told you, we were back in '88 when I come here, we were definitely in different times than we are today. That worked back them days. Today, if you want good production, and you want respect, and you want trust and high morale, that type of leadership doesn't work no more.
Yeah.
Top down. You got to have your staff engaged, and make them feel important, let them know that their opinions matter, let them delegate some responsibilities down. It shows that you trust them.
Yeah.
It shows that they're part of the team. They're contributing to your cause.
Yep.
And to your goals, help you reaching your goals. But it's good to see it's good to see what we have going on right here now.
Yeah.
It's a little different than I'm used to years ago, but
this is fun, and
it's good stuff here.
The other was stressful and frustrating and challenging, and this is more fun and motivational and energizing. Still got to do the same work, but it's a completely different feeling. It sounds like.
Mac, back before blue collar days for us, I tell you, it wasn't unusual for there to be some type of grievance going on within our leadership or within our branch. I can tell you that we have not had our grievance since we started going down this road of changing this culture.
Wow, y'all have some tools. Y'all have
some
tools now to work with each other and to work things out and to tell people the truth and be transparent, because there's trust. People not hiding all this stuff, and it's not building up probably as much. Is that true or not?
That is definitely true. Again, I would just say, I don't. Perfect is a such thing. We're not perfect. We still got a lot of room, a lot of improvement to make. The best thing about that is we all realize that.
Yeah.
We all realize that, we still need to get better. We got to continue to get improved. We got to, continue to work on implementing and using the right, leadership principles to get other people engaged, get other people involved. So
okay, so
work in process.
I know it, man, and you can't stop, right? You stop, you start going the other direction. You got to keep it going.
People pass you. They'll pass you by, leave you standing there. You won't have a ride in them, man.
You're absolutely right. So when we come up and talk to you guys, I know you guys been doing all this stuff for 4 years. We come up and did that 3-day workshop, but some of the people were transparent, even with us, even then. Some of them you may remember. I assume you heard the conversation. You may have knew even before, but some of them were a little reluctant, like they didn't know if they wanted to come. It was all volunteer. You opened it up to people could volunteer. The guy, I remember one guy, he thought, well, I don't really want to come. I don't know why I need to come, but he come anyway also. But he was one of the strongest guys at the graduation.
Yeah.
So what was some of the feedback like before? Some people were excited, that was obvious, and then some people were reluctant. But then what did you get, beforehand and afterward? What did you see happen just from 3 days with us in the room?
Well, I mean, obviously, one of the biggest things feedback I got, and I think we heard it in a couple of testimonies, but reading the books is one thing, studying the books is one thing. But when we had you and Rhea come, to do the work, the workshop, the way you guys present the leadership principles that we're talking about with your personal and professional career experiences is just powerful. Those discussions just showed, hey, you guys are not perfect either. You guys are providing a great, a great tool for supervisors to use, but you've had your challenges and you had your obstacles. You wasn't where you are now all the time. You had to work to get there as well.
You got work to stay here too.
Yeah, the way you guys teach, and the way in the motivational speeches that you give is, it showed these guys it's more than a book. These are real people who wrote these books.
Yeah.
And that's what I got out of this before and after is the couple that like, well, I was reading because everybody was reading, but now I'm glad I was reading and I'm glad I came because this was powerful. I'm so glad. And most of the guys that, that showed that much, what's that word I'm looking for? Emotions about what they've seen. They still have it today. They still talk about it every day.
Wow.
Chris Porter, he's like, man, Mac, it's a great deal. We need to get him back up here. Robbie, my buddy, Robbie, the new supervisor. He's, we need to get them back up here to talk to all the guys in the field, talk to all our, operations guys. I was like, well, look, we can use what we learn and share it with them until we can get Mac and Rhea back.
Absolutely.
Right now, this use the tools they gave us and let's share it with them. And but these guys, they continue to talk about it, and they continue to try to do um, what's right and try to and keep improving. Um, so it's been a big help. That was a good choice to bring you guys in for 3 days.
And that's awesome. And one reason I asked you that question wasn't really to toot our horn. I appreciate
Oh,
everything you
yeah,
said, but I wanted to set it up that when we left, you were motivated and inspired, and you sent. I mean, that was only what 6-8 weeks ago we were there, but since
right.
then you've conducted, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I misunderstood, but you did your first like full day workshop with your own team with those same
Yeah,
people. You've never done that before. Is that true or not?
yeah. Well, we actually what we did was we got a day every quarter that we try to do a developmental day. Now we haven't been able to do a developmental day since the pandemic started because of the social distancing and everything else. So July 14th, so it was about a month after you guys left, we did our first developmental day. Then we since a couple years,
Was it the
you know.
first time you did a full blown like all leadership? It was all leadership that day, really.
Yes, it was leadership. Yeah.
That's the first
Yeah.
time you did a whole day of nothing but leadership type stuff.
We've done a little bit of leadership before, but not to the extent that we did this time.
So you pulled a
Um,
Mac and Rhea on them.
I did. I did.
Okay, and how'd that go? Because that's you, their leader, and then
Yeah.
same team. So how'd that go?
Well, I'll be honest with you. What I did was a little bit something different. I hadn't really did it with them to the extent I did this time. I'm actually in the process of reading another book. Excuse me, but it's not blue collar. But
Yes,
no,
I.
but I'm reading the 7 Habits of highly effective people.
Yeah, the book that changed my life. That's my #1 book. I'm glad you're reading
Yeah.
that book, but it'll make your head hurt a little bit. It ain't easy to read as
It's not.
my
You're
book.
right. Yeah, I have to go back and read a paragraph a couple times every now and then.
Okay.
But I'm still reading that. I haven't, the developmental day caught up with me pretty fast. But at the same time, as I still went through and I read the summary and what the 7 habits they're talking about, and I did a presentation for the guys about the 7 habits of highly effective people, and did put my own twist to it a little bit with what I learned through blue collar as well as what I'm reading with Stephen Covey's book.
Yeah.
But I did that, and it was received like you would not believe. I mean, everybody was asking questions. Everybody's like, "Oh man, when can we do some more of this stuff? We want to hear some more about this stuff." It was accepted, very nicely,
That's awesome.
which made me feel really good that the time I put in it and put the presentation together for them and the discussions we had, that it was received as the way it was. So it makes you feel good when you get that result. Um,
And you
and
and you modeled for them. You modeled the,
well,
hey, I can do it. Hey, you can go back and do it with your team. You don't have to do it for
yeah,
8 hours. You can do it for 10 minutes or
and
15
and
minutes.
and that's what we're doing now. Since that's what we're trying to go to now, is that we've been doing it as the supervisory team for the last 4 years. We've gotten a little bit deeper into it this year. Um, Now, you guys have said you want the field guys to see it. You like to bring Mac and Rhea back, but we can't do that at this point in time. But what we can do, we can take it out to them. So-
That's what it's all about right there.
And so each supervisor has a crew of 3 to 5 people, and so they're now starting to have readings with their own crew. So it's 3 or 5 of them going through the books, reading them, talking about leadership each day.
Wow. Every
which
day they
which
do it a
which is
little
good.
bit.
Well, we recommend each day. So I think some of them do it each day. Some of them might not do it as quite as often as others, but
The ones gung ho probably are doing it every day.
I
And
believe
the
they
other
are. Yeah,
ones, they're
yeah,
at least doing it some during each week. They at least touch on it. Like
yeah,
it's way better
and
than nothing.
right. And it's not something that I'm going to police, because at the same time as I don't want them to be forced to do it. I want them to do it on their own.
Yep.
Because if they do it on their own, it's going to actually be presented much better than if I force them to do it. We keep talking about how we improved as a team, and I keep reminding them. I said, "Look, I'm not saying we improved. You guys are saying we improved. So if you guys agree we have improved, well, it's not. What will be the reason not to share this with other people? So how to let them get better?" So I think it's working well. It's working well, and I think we're starting to move it out into the ranks of field operations, and I think it's being received pretty good.
That's outstanding. So you guys went through Blue Collar Leadership, Leading from the Front Lines, the entry level book. Y'all went through Blue Collar Leadership and Supervision. Y'all went
Yes.
through, I think I heard you say Change Happens.
Yep.
Leading yourself and others through change. Did you go through the black and yellow book, the teamwork book? I can't remember.
Yes. Yep. Teamwork. We have teamwork.
So that's 4. Did you go through any other books besides
Yeah.
those 4?
No, yeah, the last book, I tell you a little bit about that, is the last book we did was the Kaizen book.
Okay. The Leading Lean and Lean Teams. Yep.
Yes, that's
Kaizen.
right.
Yep.
Kaizen. And when the pandemic hit, operations, we couldn't, we can't telework. We kept coming to work every day.
Yeah.
So I kept having my meetings on Fridays, and probably even when I shouldn't have. Winter time hit, and unfortunately we had a case, a few cases break out here, and all the meetings had to cease, and we quit having our book readings. And I could see people starting to get away, people getting a little frustrated here or there, and so I went to using Teams, and we started meeting on Teams
on the video calls.
On video call. So we decided, well, we're going to have our meeting on Teams. Anybody object to doing our book study over Teams? And so everybody said, sure. Mac, I'm telling you, I don't know what the difference was, but it seemed like when we went to Teams, we started reading the Kaizen book. We had more engagement over Teams than we had in the actual room.
Really?
Yeah. And it was like, I was sitting back, I was like, I can't, this is great. This is great. This is great. So I felt like then that's like, I gotta give them, I gotta build on this. I'm gonna give them some more. And that's when I reached out to you guys and said, hey, I want to know more about these workshops you guys offer. I want to know what can we do? This is what we got. And that's why I called you and reached out to you. And that's what resulted the 3-day workshop. That was, these guys love that, man. They keep, but but we're back now. The teams actually got us through a rough time. It got us through a time where we wasn't getting together, we wasn't reading. But it did get us through a time where we actually got our focus back on the books, got us focused back on what we should be doing. And now times have gotten a little bit better. I'm hoping we're able to get back into the conference room, person to person. But what we do know now is if times get bad again, we just go right back to Teams, and we're not going to slow up like we did last time.
That's awesome. Yeah, you got another resource. What we always say, high impact leaders want to make something happen, they find a way, and low impact leaders find an excuse. And that's, a lot of people never even start doing this. They come in a room and hear us talk, but they never ever even start. Even though they're shaking their head and they all engaged when they're in the room, they find some excuse not to start. So that's one reason I wanted you on this podcast, man. People reach out to me all the time, want to be on my podcast, but I don't let just anybody on my podcast. I'm not trying to get a bunch of people to share my stuff so I can get a lot of likes and listens and all that. I'm trying to showcase people. Most often they're my clients. That's pretty much the only people I've had on my podcast are clients who actually get results, because I want the people who do listen in my audience to know all of you who are out there, people like you, Bobby. So in case they're interested in your industry, or specifically in your organization, in your city at Fairfax County, they could be somebody listening who does what you guys do for somebody else who got a bad leader. And so I like to showcase all of you who are worth following. So any of my listeners who may be in your area maybe want to put in the application, because if they're listening to me, I promise you want them to be talking to you if they already gung ho.
Absolutely.
So what's your favorite quote of all time? It doesn't have to be something I wrote. I'm just talking about in general. What's stood out to you out of all your growth?
Man, there's a lot of quotes out there. I got two quotes that I probably, like but better.
So let me ask you to do something before you share that. When you share that quote, share a quote, do it kind of like a book study when you're sharing your key point. Share the quote and then tell me why, right? That's what you do in the book study, right? Y'all read.
Exactly.
You say, this stood out to me because sometimes people may actually underline a quote and then read the quote and say, this stood out to me because, right? So let's just give the audience an example of, this is really all you do in the book study. You cover a chapter or a page or however much you want to cover, and then each person gets a chance to share their key takeaway and why. So let's use those two quotes like that. What's the quote, and then why was it important?
All right. Well, start with the first quote is, I believe it was either yours or Ria's quote, but you don't have to be sick to get better. And what that says to us, you got so many people in leadership today that feel that they have all the answers
Mm.
and they know everything already. So they don't do anything to continue to enhance their skills or to, let themselves get better or their team. And that's when people catch up with you and pass you, and you miss out on a lot of stuff. So um, I like that quote because it's a reminder that you know continuous reading and continuous training, leadership training will allow you to continue to be a high performer. Because if you don't water grass, it's not going to grow, right?
You're right.
So if you don't continue to help yourself by reading and doing things to get better, you know, you're going to lose some of it, and you're not going to continue to treat people the way they should be treated or lead the way you should be leading. So I
Okay.
like that quote because it means a lot.
Okay. And
Was that yours or
we
Rhea's?
say it all the time, but we actually got it from Michael Josephson. That's who we
Oh,
give
okay.
credit to. We say it
All
a
right.
lot, and we usually give him credit, but if we say it 10 times, we don't usually credit him 10 times in one conversation, but we say it every time we speak. We say that because we're trying to get the audience mindset right, because we don't want them to feel like we're blaming them, that there's something wrong with them, because there's nothing wrong with any of us, but we can all get better. So
Yeah.
that's a great share. What's your second one?
My second one is Tony Dungy's quote: "If you lose sight of people, you're going to lose sight of the purpose of leadership."
Mm, that's
And that
powerful.
that is powerful. I think most people. I'm a diehard Washington football team fan here, but I don't think it matters who you like. I think everybody likes Tony Dungy. He's such a and the reason I say that is because if you ever watch Tony Dungy and you watch him on your either Sunday football app or whatever you watch him on, and hear him talk and how he talks about the players and how he talks about the coaches, you don't hear him down talk or talk bad about anybody. And he lives what he's talking about with that. He keeps the sight of people in mind. Um, he's shown on the ball field and off the ball field what a good leader is all about. His personality, the way he treats people. So that's huge. Just how you treat people. If you lose sight of people, then that's going to cause you some problems. Everybody's got a different story. Um, I think that's closer to me than that. That quote is closer to me than most of them because I want to be treated well. I want people to think. I've had some great leaders in my career that helped me get to where I'm at by not like writing a resume or giving me answers or anything like, but actually showing me things, encouraging me, saying, "Yeah, hey Bob, you can do this. This put forth the effort. You can do this. I know you got the skills. Don't be afraid to take this chance. Don't be afraid to, you know, step out on this ledge here a little bit." Um, the encouragement that I got from leaders in the past has been a big part of my success in my career. Um, because they thought about me. And, you know, I think that quote just goes back to anything in part of your life. It talks about the purpose of leadership, but really, you lose sight of people and how you treat people. It determines the outcome, of a lot of things in your life, not just your professional career, but your personal career too.
Yeah, man, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing that, because I mean, you just gave the listeners an example of, you just shared two quotes, but imagine if you're leading a book study like you guys are doing, and you know this. I'm really speaking to the listeners who maybe haven't done this, but you just heard Bobby share 2 points and why he thought it was valuable. But imagine if you got 4 to 10 people on your team, and they're each sharing, one thing that's valuable and why. Just like Bobby just did twice, you could get that could happen 4 times or 10 times, and it could happen once a week, and you get people growing. But I don't know if you want to do this, Bobby, but when you were telling your favorite quote and you told it with so much passion, I was thinking, man, it'd be awesome. I don't know if you could do it or even you want to do it. You're the leader there in your place, but it'd be neat. Like, uh, if you got your favorite quote, which was that Tony Dungy quote, sounds like, and put it on, get it printed and put it on your wall, and get your other leaders to print for them their favorite quote and put it on the wall. That way, anybody comes into any of your place or in that conference room we were in, get everybody to just pick their quote and put them all over the place. And it's like everybody's quote would be when they walk in there, or maybe you get 2 copies. You got one of all of them in the conference room, and then everybody's got their individual in their office or space or something like that. That'd be neat to see. People know you guys were different when they walk in, because you don't see that everywhere. And
yeah, you're right. We don't do quite that, but that's a good idea. Thank you. I might do that.
When you were saying it, I was like, it'd be awesome to see it back behind you on the wall up there, and everybody walks in and you see that, and everybody else puts it on their wall, because it kind of holds you more of accountable when you're going to say, this is what I believe, right? And people see it.
One thing we do over in the conference room where everybody comes walking through each day, we put a quote up there. I think it's a different quote, goes up every week or maybe every other week.
Yep.
And anybody who has a quote they want to put up there is allowed to put it up there.
That's awesome.
So I don't know who all puts quotes up there. I just know, every now and then I drop one up there, and
people stop by to read it.
Yeah, and people do. And then some people change it. It's time to get another quote up there. So yeah, I like that idea, though. Maybe each supervisor, yeah.
Yeah, and I know when we were there, you guys asked us to write a quote on the board before we left.
That's right, we did.
Yeah,
that's right.
And what was I going to say? I lost my thought there. I don't even remember. It's gone now, but that was pretty cool. I remember what I was going to say. I talk about the quote in Blue Collar Leadership and Teamwork, the 30 traits of high impact team players. I remember in that book, I have Bob, the Blue Collar Bob starts learning from a board with a quote on it, and later he's putting them on the board. So
yes, he was. That's what he went. Yeah.
I've had other people that really, they tell me they started doing something like that because of Blue Collar Bob, and I just used him as an example of growth. But so we 50 minutes in, man. I want to ask you one last question. What's your favorite book and why?
Well, I think I'm gonna go at this point in time. It may change in the future because I'm committed to reading.
Yep.
Daily, for as long as I can read. From here on out. Right now, I think the Kaizen book is probably my favorite because.
Really, that's surprising to hear.
The reason I'm saying it is because I've seen results from that book more than I have throughout the entire time. And it resulted in you guys coming up. It resulted in my team getting like a boost of energy, out of what we, was able to do with the 3-day workshop. And I've seen in the interaction from that book that we had in the book study.
Yep.
It was like no other book. I mean, it hit. One guy said, guy hadn't been here but 6 months, and he was reading, and he says, I haven't been here but 6 months, but I'm gonna tell you, I feel like every chapter we've read in this book, it's actually hit the nail on the head with us in our organization.
Wow.
And you could tell by the conversation we had. So I think I would, for now, I would put it on the Kaizen.
That's awesome. And you guys, in the book you're talking about for my listeners is Blue Collar Kaizen, Leading Lean and Lean Teams. And I wrote that book. It's all about how to lead teams through process improvement. I logged over 11,000 hours leading, teams through lean manufacturing and process improvement. This episode is going to come out. I'm going to put it out. I may put it out today, but it's going to come out in the middle of my series. Right now on my podcast, I'm putting out 30 episodes over 30 weeks featuring where I just talk off the cuff about each chapter from that book. And what's interesting is I've noticed my listeners it's went down because I can see how many people are listening, but I'm still going to do it. But basically my listening has cut in half. People, I guess they're not interested, but a lot of them probably are not interested because they think it's for people who are doing lean manufacturing. And you guys really had never heard of that until you read about it in that book. And then we taught a little when we come up there. So could you do me another favor, Bobby, and say why anybody, if anybody listens to this right here in the middle of this series that I'm putting out actually on that book, because I think I've got 10 or 11 episodes before this one comes out. And I got, about 20 to go after your podcast, after I put it out. But why should anybody listen to that book? Because it's really principles about leading teams of people. That's really what it's about. I put it in the context of my world, but why should somebody who's never heard of lean or never plans to do lean or that kind of thing, why should they check out that book or listen to the podcast since it meant so much to you? Because you actually were that person.
Yeah, I think about the quote I just talked about is you don't have to be sick to get better. And the thing about it is if anytime you can improve your processes to make things better for not just you but your entire team, it's gonna improve your production. It's gonna improve your overall. If you're into profit making, it's going to improve your profits. Municipalities is not into profits, but we are, in about production and getting things done.
Reducing costs definitely
Yeah,
into that.
Reducing costs, exactly. So that book's really good. It gives you really good directions and ideas. What we took away from that book and the 3-day workshop we did with you guys is I've had guys go out here now and they've redone the entire inventory sheet on their crew vans.
Wow, that's awesome.
They've went and they've set their crew vans up totally different where they'd be more efficient, where they don't have to go in there and look for a brick trowel for something they haven't used. They got it in a better place where it's very easy to get to. And these are the things that we talked about once you guys left. And if you read that book and you kind of relate it to what you're doing, it could help you.
That's
It
awesome.
could help you. So
that's awesome. So we got 5 minutes left, man. Anything you want to give out to the world about you or your future or your past or what you're doing now or just general thoughts?
Well, I mean, I appreciate the time to talk with you, and we actually, I think I could speak for my entire staff. We bought in on blue collar. We enjoy it. It helps us. It's a tool that we're going to continue to use. I've actually, I'm coming to the end of my career here, and I feel comfortable that even when I leave, that they will continue on with it, with this using this. And I feel like I'm going to continue on as well. If it's not here, hopefully it's somewhere else. I feel that I have, I've learned enough, or know enough about the process now where I can kind of go out and help others if they need the help. More on that to come later on.
Yeah.
But one time I never thought that I would stand up in front of people and give a presentation on leadership. But throughout this process, reading these books, it's definitely helped me be more confident to be able to do so.
That's awesome.
And I think it's a good product. I think it's helpful, and I'm here to share it with whoever wants to hear it.
That's awesome. You kind of like my friend Amir Ganad when he said he didn't retire. He didn't retire. He rewired. He didn't, he said, I haven't retired. I've rewired. So you a young man, as far as I can tell, and you got a lot of good energy left in you. So what you saying is you ain't really retiring. Whenever you do retire, you're gonna just move in a different direction, do a different.
Yeah,
This ain't leaving you. Maybe. No matter what you do.
No, yeah, whatever I do, I'm continue to try to read and improve myself, and that way I share with others.
Man, we're really about out of time, but I forgot to even mention this. But real quick, how much have you seen this impact people personally, not just at work, just their personal life? Was it any benefit to that?
I started talking about a gentleman early in our podcast there about him being reluctant to be part of this. I've seen multiple different people on our team that has actually started seriously reading, evaluating themselves, implementing the principles that we read about into their daily, life. I don't know what happens to them at home in their personal lives. I just hear about stuff that they tell us.
Yeah.
But professionally, I know there's a handful of success cases right now where a couple of them may have been on the edge of being dismissed or
really?
taking themselves out of the position of supervision, but some being outside of the position of supervision and now as in because they got involved and understand, hey, they did a self-evaluation, listened to the books, engaged in the readings, in the discussions.
Okay.
It's I've seen it, and it's good to see those changes including myself. I'm a totally different leader than I was, 5 years ago.
Yep. And that's a personal piece. So you saw people
Yeah.
who maybe were going to be demoted or lose their job, actually
Yeah.
keep their job and maybe even be promoted. And then you saw other people who had not been promoted yet into a leadership position who bought in and got promoted. That's
Yeah.
definitely changing their life at home
And, and, be-
indirectly.
and because of my experiences, what I see, if you get involved in a blue collar leadership books and in these book studies and you implement or any other leadership book,
Yep.
so to speak, and you implement, the principles, what your book talks about common sense not being common practice.
Yep.
And that's a big thing that people has to understand. They know it. Yeah, it's common sense. You treat people nicely, but do you do that all the time?
Yep.
Do you look in the mirror and say, "Oh, how I talk to that person right now in front of everybody, was that right?" No, there's a lot of self-evaluation and a lot of things that people can do. And if they think about it more and they read daily, it would help them prevent getting in situations where, it doesn't look so good for them.
Yep.
But yeah, I would, it's, I've seen it, I've experienced it, and I'm excited for the people who made the change and it's done better and it's actually helped them in their career as well as their personal life.
But you had one more thing you wanted to share with me.
Yeah, I was to tell you, I used to start all my staff meetings out with just we go right into the book reading, club, and when I found out here over recent weeks, we changed up a little bit, and it's very receptive and encouraging to everybody.
Okay.
So now we start out with a what we call an icebreaker of the meeting, and I did an icebreaker a couple weeks ago. Just asked everybody to, write down 3 things about them, 2 being true, 1 not being true.
Okay.
And we walked around and we went around the room and figured out who was saying it, figure out what was two truths and about each person. And then I pulled up an inspirational or a motivational video. I'll be honest with you, I forgot which one it was, but and the video was about 10, 15 minutes long. But it just started the tone of the meeting, and got everybody thinking leadership. And then we got into the book reading. The book reading was that much more engagement because we already had the motivational video and the icebreaker ahead of us. It just got us that much more involved in reading the book and discussing the leadership fundamentals.
That's
and
good.
things we was reading the book. So now I started a couple weeks ago, but now each week a different person does the icebreaker and a different person does the motivational video that they
Awesome.
share.
You're building leaders.
So they go out and they find that information, and we just put a little bit of parameters around it. We say, hey, don't try to keep it within 15 minutes. And we've had a good time, man. It really opens the meetings up. People get to laughing. Just the example is, I don't know if you guys ever done this one or not, but one of the icebreakers was someone came in with a roll of toilet paper, and they told you to take off as much as you would use if you were going to the bathroom. So I was like, what in the world? So we what it came down to, after everybody got their amount of toilet paper they normally use, you had to count the squares, how many you had. And some had 3 squares and some had 32 squares. Well, you had to give a fact about you for each square. So that was a really fun day. That was a kind of lengthy one because we got 20 some people on our staff now, but it was lengthy, but it was fun. But what you heard is, you heard a lot of facts about some of your colleagues or your subordinates that you didn't know, because if you're that one that pulled 42 sheets off,
you gotta unload.
You got to unload. So that's pretty funny. And then we've seen that it's been working really good for us. So that might be a nugget some people can take and try that would help their meetings be more productive or whatever.
That's good. And think how much they're learning, especially when they're looking for an inspirational video. Think how many they listen to maybe before they get the one. So you kind of inspiring them to grow. And then they might get interested in that. And they may be out looking at videos every day when people don't even know it because it ain't their day to bring one in, but they got hooked.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that's what someone said last time. He said, man, I had to look at about 20 or 30 of these things to find one that was only 15 minutes. So you're right. You're exactly right when you said that. Yeah.
Yeah. And what you're doing actually also, we talked about offline, was you're helping them, and whoever's doing it, you're helping them connect with the audience first. You're not going straight into the book study. And what you're doing takes a high impact leader to do it, because most leaders, they don't even want to do the book study. Then when they do the book study, they just want to get it over with so they can move on. But anybody can do what you're doing, but it requires more time, more energy, more resources. If people getting paid now to do this stuff, but this is what the best high impact leaders, they ain't worried about that. They ain't worried about an ROI. They know the ROI. It's hard to measure, but they know they're getting it because the team's getting better. So thank you for sharing that, man.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool. All right, sir. Well, thank you very much for participating and adding value to my audience, and hopefully inspiring some other people to do what you've already done and continue to do.
Absolutely.
Been a pleasure. So I'm gonna sign us off here, and I really appreciate it, Bobby. I look forward to hearing of your story continuing with your team and whatever you do when you actually do decide to retire, in 10 or 15 years from now. It might not be that long. We don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen, right. and your story is going to continue. So thank you very much, man. Any of you guys out there in the world looking for something potentially in Fairfax County, Virginia, if you're interested in what Bobby's talking about, they do find, get on their website, Fairfax County website, and figure out how to get in touch with Bobby Kerns, 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 and he'll help you out. So talk to you next time.
Thank you, Mac.
Make it happen, or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership Series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.